Cool. Hi, everybody. We'll give it a few minutes for folks to join. We have a bunch of great speakers today to talk about the 2023 Paid Social Benchmark Report, what we learned, what advice we have for marketers that are reading this report and maybe wondering how to make it actionable. So we'll get started in just a couple minutes. Speakers, how's everybody doing today? Good. Jason, you look pleasant.
Pleasant. That's one I haven't heard in a while. Yeah, no, doing good. It's so fun to be on the call with you guys again. We haven't done this and it's been what, 6, 7, 8 weeks at least. At least the four of us. I know, Alon, sorry, you're not the outsider, you're the insider. Yeah. But yeah, I think Jessica, me, Alex, Brittany probably are on a call together. I don't know, 7, 8 weeks ago. Who knows? But it's nice to see you all.
Nice to see
the reunion.
Did you guys get any Prime Day deals? I'm just saying, primed away yesterday.
Too many. And I share a Prime account with my parents who put all of their Prime purchases on my card. So I was like, what is going on? And my dad was like, oh, by the way, casually spent $400 on your card. It's like,
no big deal.
Great. Love that journey for you. Yeah, no, nothing special. Boring stuff for my dog.
Nice. Did you get Teddy a wig yet?
Yes.
Good.
Yes, the wig is coming.
Alex, my daughter got a French bulldog.
And
you will die. So I will send you some videos and stuff for sure.
Please send me pictures. Please tell her to get pet insurance.
She did. No, that was like number one. I was like, do not buy that dog unless you can afford pet insurance. And so, yeah, she's got pet insurance.
Perfect. You need it for Frenchies. Yeah. Okay, we can kick it off. We're 2 minutes in. Let's get this show on the road. Thanks to everybody that's joined. We're gonna kind of talk real about the 2023 Social Benchmark Report, what we learned. We have a couple of experts with us today. So let's dive into some intros. If you could just say your name, where you're working, and then we'll pass to the next person. Brittany, I'll start with you.
Awesome. Well, hey guys, I am Brittany Blanken and I am working for myself, Brittany Blanken Consulting, pumped. I'm a fractional demand gen leader that helps B2B marketers and marketing leaders do more with less, especially in these times, right? And really my claim to fame is I help them drive more revenue with less budget and resources. So that's me.
Awesome. All right, next up, Alan, is that how you say your name?
You can pronounce Alon. So my name is Alon Evan. I've been a B2B marketer for more than 15 years now, and I've served as a VP marketing CMO in my last 3 roles. I'm also a fractional CMO in the past 2.5 years, and I helped early stage startups and scale-ups to build and execute go-to-market strategy and help them obviously accelerate the revenue growth.
Cool. And we're so excited to have you here. We saw one of Alan's posts analyzing this report, and we were like, want to join a conversation with us with a whole bunch of people from the demand community. So really great to have you here. Jessica, what about you?
Yeah, I'm Jessica Kezia. I'm performance marketing manager at Metadata. I've been in the company for 2 years. I had the pleasure of working with Brittany and Jason as well. So I'm also focusing on paid ads and demand gen effort for Metadata, and also managing paid ads for Metadata customers as well. So yeah, I'm really excited to be here.
Awesome. We're so glad to have you. I think this is maybe your first time on one of these masterclasses with us. So really pumped you're here and decided to do this with us. And then, kind of an unknown in the marketing community, we have Jason Widup. So
maybe you got a whole panel of fractionals here. I love it. Yeah. So I'm doing the same thing as Brittany and Alon. I left Metadata 6 weeks ago, I think, something like that. Took about 5 weeks off, and then started to do some consulting for myself as well. It's been fun so far, trying to take a nice little hiatus through the summer and kind of kick it back into gear probably in the fall.
Yeah, I should have put marketing advisor and hiking influencer on here.
Well, hold on, you got to remember the hair care influencer as well. I'm on that ship.
Still have not had a haircut yet, but my wife is going to a new person this Saturday. She's going to tell me how they are. So we'll see, get a trim up here pretty soon.
Amazing. So many more topics for master classes are coming out of this. I can just tell. All right, cool. So we just released this report. If you've seen it, you know, we've analyzed a bunch of data over the past year, a ton of ad spend, a ton of different campaigns that have run through our platform on LinkedIn, Facebook, and occasionally search. And so we put it all together and kind of wanted to give the best advice to B2B marketers in that report. But I think some people are wondering what's the so what about this report. So I'd love to go through, maybe we can do the same order again and just kind of what was your so what about the report? What was your initial reaction to it? And then we'll dive into some deeper questions that we got ahead of this webinar from the audience. So Brittany, I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah. So the first thing I wanted to kind of touch on is like, what was the most surprising about the report first? Number one, I'm surprised it was gated. What the heck, guys? You're breaking my heart. But we'll jump into that a little bit later, just because of like the data that I was looking at through the report. But number two, I was also very surprised about the spending habits between the prior period and, you know, post April 2022. You know, in a down economy, I was assuming, oh, marketers are going to spend less. Surprise, they actually spent more. And I was really surprised about that. I'm looking at the data on my other screen here. And pre-April, they spent $45 million across LinkedIn and Facebook. Post-April 2022, they spent $63 million across those channels. So that was an $18 million difference. So that was the one thing that surprised me. And the biggest so what patterns outside of those surprising factors was the fact that paid social is becoming less efficient or more inefficient, if you will, if you're only using it for lead gen tactics. There's a lot of things that we can uncover throughout this call, but that was the most surprising and the most so what. And so knowing that there's so many things that we can really start strategizing and using that to create better strategies, especially when it comes to paid social.
Yeah, I thought that was super interesting. We hear all the time, down economy, like shrinking budgets, shrinking staff, and yet we're spending a little bit more. So that was definitely a shocker for me. Alon, what about you?
Actually, it's similar to what Brinty just said. So overall, you know, the overall ad spend is flattening out rather than dropping, which is surprising as well. And regarding lead gen, I think that's we see from the data, when we cover it later, that lead gen is underperforming, but still many companies still invest most of their ad budget. If I'm not mistaken, it's around 80% of the budget investing in lead gen. And I think that's, I get it, because they are under pressure to deliver results, but the thing is that they keep doing what they have done in the past and hope for better results, but they're doing more of the same. So exactly as Brittany said, these are two things that stood out to me.
Yeah, I feel like in the commentary we've seen on LinkedIn and other parts of the internet, we've seen a lot of that similar +1 to what both of you are saying. Jessica, I'm wondering, from an active user in the platform, somebody who's dealing with our customers and supporting them, you know, what about the benchmark report was kind of like maybe an aha or so what or surprising to you?
Yeah, I second everything that Brittany and Ellen said about the budget. That's the most shocking one, because customers, most of them also cut their budget, but then from the benchmark report, we actually see they are spending more. And not just that, I think also the fact that more marketers are leveraging Facebook for their B2B campaigns, I think that's really interesting as well, because I think we always know LinkedIn as the main channel for B2B. And then also the fact that cost per opportunity for Facebook also lower significantly this year compared to last year. It's still higher than LinkedIn, but still the growth on Facebook, there's a lot of potential there.
Yeah, we love preaching to folks about the B2B powers of Facebook and uncovering that. Jason, you've written this report, what, 2 years in a row, I think. So what kind of year over year perspective do you have on the so what for this year? And then as a VP, you've had to make cuts and budget reallocations. So, what's the follow-up for you? Okay. Oh, wow. All right.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. So one of the things, and Alon mentioned this, was it's like 80% of the spend was on lead gen. Well, I think that's down a little bit from last year. So I think last year was like 90%. And so as a percent of the total spend, it looks like maybe marketers are getting a little bit smarter and like, okay, we can't just do pure straight lead gen. And this is something that, Brittany started to do at Metadata, which was, if you're just doing lead gen to a cold audience, it just really stopped working, and at least for us and for a lot of the customers that we were talking to, you got to warm them up in some way. And so we were, I think, Brittany, correct me if I'm wrong, towards the end there, we were focusing a lot more of the demand gen spend on retargeting audiences. And so and then we just saw like that was very clear in the data, how much better those performed. And so, and it's just, one thing to mention, it is pretty hard to get really deep insights from this data because it is very averagey, right? So these are averages across people that spend $10,000 a month up to several $100,000 a month. They have ASPs that range from like $10 a month to $120,000 a year. So like somebody's cost per opportunity at $1,500, they might be like, oh my God, this is the best cost per opportunity I've ever had. And then the other person's like, that's the worst one I've ever seen in my entire life. And so that's one thing to it's always been a challenge with this report, which is also why we expose the raw data for people. So you can take that and you can sub-segment it into like, oh, companies of this size or companies in this industry. So I think it's important to be able to do that. I don't know if we release the full data set this year like we have in the previous years or if we're going to, but I think that's a way to kind of tease into this a little bit more and get a little bit deeper insights. But that said, looking at some of the cost pers, it looks like some of the upfront stuff is maybe a little bit cheaper or it's on par from previous times. But then when you get into like the deeper like cost per opportunity or cost per dollar of pipeline, that's where it starts to look like it might be getting worse. And that kind of makes sense to me because it was a little bit of what we were seeing too. Is like people are still interested in learning about stuff. Like I want to learn about new tools out there. I want to check out what's, because there's still 9,000 some odd tools. So let me learn about these new ones, but I have no budget now. And so getting into that opportunity and like actually having that like, okay, we actually have an opportunity here. I think that is a struggle point for a lot of AEs and, just funnels in general. And that's probably a little bit, I'm guessing, of what we're seeing.
Nice. I want to go back to your point about retargeting. I saw everybody's head kind of nodding on that. Brittany, do you want to take it back to your time at Metadata and maybe the plays you were shifting to when it comes to retargeting, lead gen, seeing shifts and wanting to optimize your campaigns?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, at the end of the day, what we were seeing was if we could segment our audiences based off high intent and low intent, then we could really allocate our budget accordingly. So knowing our high intent audiences were more apt to convert, not only from a lead to an MQL, but a lead to opportunity allowed us to optimize and maximize our budget appropriately. So some of the things that we started doing, and Jessica, she was right there in the front lines with me, was, okay, look, how can we layer in more of our intent data with our retargeting audience? Because let's get real, just because someone is visiting your website does not mean they are ready to buy, right? Same thing, darn right. Same thing with if someone's downloading a piece of content, they're in the research mode, right? So some of the things that we really started experimenting on and really doubled down on was, okay, could we layer in more of these intent-based audiences with our ICP and target account lists based on really specific triggers? So for instance, some of the things that we were layering on was, let's look at high intent topics from G2 Crowd or Bombora. Okay, let's layer in that. Let's layer in audiences that were, let me see, re-engaged accounts from our Salesforce CRM, right? And how can we dynamically update that with metadata? And then other things was also looking at big industry shifts. So are these companies recently funded? Okay, if they're recently funded, they might have more budget, even if it's in a down economy. Maybe we can go after them that way. They have like a buying signal. Or are these companies hiring. So we started layering on a lot of this data to really get to the cream of the crop, if you will, when it comes to not only going after people visiting our website, but also people who are showing buying intent in other ways.
Awesome. Jessica, you're on the front lines, like Brittany said. What are you seeing? How have you taken kind of what Brittany started shifting and optimizing that, or optimizing campaigns for customers? Oh, you might be on mute.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I think it happened 2 quarters ago. Brittany and I, we always did our quarterly review. So every end of quarter, we always review how our campaigns are performing, what's the performance look like. And what we realized 2 quarters ago, because we ran this test, running demo campaign towards cold audience and then retargeting audience. And then when we look at the data, how much we spend and then how much we generate, we actually got a ton of leads out of the cold audience, but they're not converting into opportunities. I mean, in terms of cost per leads, they're really good, but they're not converting into opportunities. That's when we realized we're probably going to use this cold audience to our brand awareness effort to then we're going to nurture them and then get them warmer, and then we will retarget them for our demo campaigns. That's when we see huge improvement after the next quarter after that.
Right. I think that highlights too, just really getting in tune with your funnel mechanics throughout the entire journey, right? Not only looking at conversion rates like click-through rates and CPLs, they're great and all, but it only tells a very small portion of the story. So really honing in and leaning into what are the conversion rates throughout the entire funnel? What is the lead to opportunity conversion rate? But also, what's the spend to pipeline ratio? Is this an actual ROI backed campaign, yes or no? And so really understanding how to tie those metrics down to results that actually matter. That was a really big thing that metadata, of course, helped us allow to do faster, but it gave us the visibility to just cut through the bullshit. Like, oh, this actually isn't working. How do we pivot?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There's that content warner I have for the curse words, bad girl of marketing coming in hot. I saw your head shaking a lot. What commentary would you add?
I think that this is where demand generation, or to be more accurate, demand creation comes into play, because let's say that you are running demand creation campaigns on LinkedIn, and then you create engage account that know what you do, what differentiates your product from others, and so on. And then some of them will come to your website, and then you can retarget them on one hand. On the other hand, you can also use intent-based triggers to go outbound. So it's another strategy that you can do. It works well when you deploy, when you go do ABM, for example. You can target specific account, and then you can see the engagement and the intent data and so on.
Great. All right. So I think we covered the so what. We have a bunch of questions from the audience that Katie got ahead of this, but I wanted to mention, we do have a Q&A here too. So audience, I don't think I mentioned this. As you're hearing what our experts are saying, if you have a question, just pop it in the Q&A and I will get that answered for you. All right, so here is my cheesy little image, but B2B marketing is like an onion. Sometimes you weep when you peel it back. So this year obviously has been a little bit of a struggle, but there are some bright spots. There are some things that marketers can do to make their campaigns more effective and get a seat at the revenue table. So with that, we will go into some questions. And Brittany, I'll kick it over to you first. What patterns, you lightly talked about this when we were talking about the so what, but specifically around lead gen, what patterns did you pick up on? And is there something that, you saw that from a lead gen perspective, marketers can be doing to make it actionable, to make this report a little more actionable?
Definitely. Well, the biggest pattern, just going back to what we were talking about earlier, was a lot of B2B marketers are using paid social, and tying that with lead gen only efforts is just becoming highly inefficient, right? We know that in down economies, we still have to advertise to our buyers. Everyone gets that at this point, right? But how we do that has got to change. Some of the biggest patterns that I noticed was, this top of funnel metrics, CPCs and CPLs, they're decreasing, cool. And even CTRs, they're increasing. but the CPOs, they're also increasing. So it's showing that buyers are still consuming our messaging, which is awesome, but they're not converting, right? And that is obviously due to a lot of the reasons around lower buying power and longer sales cycles. And so the biggest trend that I noticed across the board was B2B marketers have to have a mix between lead gen and brand awareness motions in order to capitalize and make their campaigns more efficient, and then really their go-to-market motions more efficient. And what I mean by that is, going from ungating our content so that we can increase consumption rates a little bit better, or reach our buyers where they're at, instead of gating that and only going after downloads and leads. Because at the end of the day, if leads aren't converting to pipeline and revenue, what are we doing? So that was the biggest pattern and trend that I saw throughout the whole report.
That's great. And Jason and Alon, from being VPs of marketing or in marketing leadership, when Brittany's talking about that mix of brand awareness and lead generation, but also maybe not seeing the best ROI coming from your campaigns, how are you explaining that at like a leadership level? What tweaks are you trying to make? And how are you encouraging the team to kind of, try new things or shift when necessary?
You want to go first, Alon?
Actually, it's also, I think it's one of the questions also touches this topic. So I think that when it comes to long-term strategy, you have to know what you can measure and what you can measure indirectly. So I think when it comes to demand creation, there are a few early performance indicators that can show you that you are headed in the right direction. For example, you can see that you have more direct and branded search traffic. Later on, and it takes around, don't take my word for it, it depends a lot of elements, but it can take around 1 quarter to 2 to see the actual results. But so beside the traffic, you can also see that the traffic is visiting your high intent pages like demo requests, price request, or a pricing page, and so on. And later on, you can also identify other leading and lagging indicators, like you have more hand raiser, more, I don't like to call them MQLs because we can argue what is MQLs, but let's call them high intent signups. So you can also see that you have more high intent sign up, more hand raiser that fit your ICP. And in the later stages, you can also measure the conversion rate and the opportunity, the sales qualified opportunity that generated from this effort. Another thing that we should take into account to help us measure this effort is to use self-reported attribution in order to see the source that generated the demand. And when they come to the website, this is how you measure, how you capture the demand. So it's a different measures, but and you shouldn't just rely on your attribution reports, but also take a look at the big picture. That's how I see it.
Yeah, so I've been talking to a lot of marketing leaders and CEOs trying to sell my wares, and and what the common thread with everybody is just like efficiency right now. And so everybody's like trying to figure out, how do we spend less money on paid ads? Do we even do paid ads now? And so that basically means we have to get more targeted with if we're going to spend money, we got to be a lot more targeted. So a lot of people, even though ABM has never really gone away as a buzzword, I see more people talking about it now. Like, I think we got to do more ABM-like things, which just really means more targeted at a smaller set of accounts, really, than more broad. And that can really help extend any kind of money that you have, right? So now you're maybe hopefully advertising to 1,000 companies or less versus maybe tens of thousands as you were before. And then also, one of the things that I noticed between marketers that are having success with more pure demand gen versus ones that aren't is really come down to the offer. And so if they're offering just like a demo and they think that's an offer, that's not great, right? So that's really an offer for themselves more than anything else. And so companies that are using offers like a custom report of some type, or like more importantly, like PLG, like a free trial, or like a really good product tour that really kind of gets me in the space of what it's going to be like to work with it. Those I feel like are having more success. ROI calculators, just things that can actually give me some value. And then I don't think, we saw this too, like the $100 demo offers have to be really targeted now. It used to be like we could spray and pray those things and we'd get good opportunities from them. Now it's kind of like more people are just taking the $100. It kind of goes back to one of the first things I was saying, which was, yeah, I'm interested in learning about new technology, but I really have no intent on buying anything right now. And so that's just ripe for losing money on a $100 demo offer, because the intent is still like, they're still generally like good intent. They're kind of like, yeah, sure, you want me to learn about your product? You're gonna give me $100 for it? I'm generally the right person for this, so sure. So it's like not even malintent, but they're kind of like, if you ask that one more question before they got the demo, like, do you have budget to, everyone would be like, no, sorry, I can't, I can't take the demo. And so I think we're hopefully seeing a shift away from that, or a shift to using those $100 incentives in a much more targeted way, like with people that have already engaged with your product in some way. Maybe they've already taken a product tour, they've done something already. They're not just cold like, oh, never heard it from you before. Yes, let's meet for half an hour and I get $100.
Yeah, such a good point on the relevancy of the demos, and on both sides, to make sure that, you're not wasting money, and then the person on the other end is getting value. That's not just a demo experience. Jessica, I'm curious, from working with our customers and even running all the plays now for metadata, how are you balancing the short and long-term kind of campaigns or strategies or thought processes?
Yeah, I think it goes back to what are the goals? What are we trying to achieve? For example, okay, we have this benchmark report. This is metadata example. We have this benchmark report. What are we trying to do? We want to get as many downloads as possible because we're getting it right now. So we want to get many emails. We want to get many downloads as much as possible. So but the goal is not necessarily for demo for this campaign specifically. So we're just trying to balance it out. We're running brand awareness, and then we're also trying to track from the reporting, but also just remember at the end of the day, the big picture is we want to also trying to get demos. So I think it really goes back to what are your goals, and then the strategy, and then just making sure in every campaign that you run, the messaging and then the audience, just making sure that all the messaging is resonating with your audience as well. So that's really important.
Nice. And then we've kind of touched on this question in the bottom.
Alex, if you don't mind, can I also jump in with one other piggybacking statement? Just from a demand gen perspective, and then rolling up into VPs of marketing or CMOs, it's really hard thinking like, yeah, I can shift my strategy. A couple of the metrics that help me prove like, hey, we've got to shift strategy to some of my superiors is like two big ones. Alon kind of said it lightly, but looking at your blended cost per opportunity would be a big one. So your blended cost per opportunity is how much are you spending across your brand awareness and your lead gen campaigns? Getting a really good sense of that, because if your blended cost per opportunity starts decreasing, that is really a leading indicator showing you that you're targeting the right audience, but also you have a good mix between lead gen and brand awareness. So that's a metric that I definitely recommend starting to track sooner rather than later if you're not already. The other one, again, I said this before, but instead of looking at start looking at conversion rates versus consumption rates. So we can't always be on this MQL hamster wheel all the time. And just really understanding how are your conversion rates through your entire funnel looking and performing while you start integrating more brand awareness campaigns into the mix, right? So is your lead to MQL conversion rate increasing? Cool. But what really is happening? Is your lead to opportunity conversion rate increasing? Great. If you have a really low lead to opportunity conversion rate, it might be a sign that you need to start shifting your strategy. So really going back to the basics and looking at and understanding how are your leads matriculating through your funnel, and understanding how is paid playing into this? How is my other campaigns playing into this? Because having a good sense on those fronts will then help you create that better story for your bosses or your board or your CEO, right? Like you've got to have that story to tell to back up some of these strategies shifts. So
no,
I have just a quick one, if you don't mind. So I think that we also should remember that we're talking about social media platform, and in my experience, I think that they don't usually work well for capturing demand, and it even it's even less in today's economic climate. So they are more about awareness and demand creation than capturing the demand, and this is why it's not working. It's as simple as that. You know that. Depending who you ask, 1 to 5% of your market is in market, and I guess it's more closer to 1%. So you are trying to target this 1% instead of going after the 99% that you need to educate at scale. So I think that instead of thinking just on the short term, and I totally get it that they need to hit their targets and get results, but instead of thinking short term, they also think about the long term, and 20% budget allocated for brand awareness, it's not enough in my experience. So I would, and you mentioned that I would want in-feed content consumption or zero-click content, start trying to stay top of mind, and then when the market picks up again, and it's a matter of when, not if, then buyer will probably remember you. And this is how demand creation works. You create the demand right now for your buyers to come to you down the road. So I think that the budget allocation here is not optimal if you want to win the long term.
Right. And then just again, there's reports on LinkedIn where you can see what companies are consuming your content or your ads, right? You can double down that and complement an ABM strategy, or complement, okay, we're ungating this. What companies are seeing this? So there's ways to get around gated content.
For sure. Jason, anything to add on that topic? I saw you nod your head a little bit before I move on.
No, I mean, no, I'll just be listening to myself talk if I add anything to that.
I love that self-awareness. All right, I wanted to pivot a little bit to the question at the bottom right. I know we've kind of been talking about it a little bit, but in the benchmark report, there were some interesting points around conversion rates. So how can marketers plan for high intent leads versus low intent and improving leads to pipeline? I think we've really, Brittany, you've been kind of hammering home, watching the pipeline, ensuring what goes to each stage and making tweaks along the way. But curious when it comes to intent and then those leads, how can marketers, in a BFFR perspective, plan for that?
Remind me again what BFFR even means, Alex. I love all your
means fucking for real. So no theory here, just
love it. Yeah. Looking at the report, I mean, Jessica's hinted at this earlier, but the report showed that LinkedIn's cost per opportunity increased, but it was still the cheapest cost per opportunity by 36% compared to Facebook. Facebook cost per opportunity definitely decreased a lot. But if I were still a betting woman, which I always am, I would still bet on LinkedIn for any bottom of funnel efforts that I'm still doing. I think the increase that LinkedIn's cost per opportunity, I think the increase was due to obviously the slower market, the lower buying signals that we're seeing, but also the additional $14.4 million in spend on that channel. And then prior versus between the both periods, there we go, words. So marketers spent 45% more budget on LinkedIn. So that's also a huge correlating factor as to why LinkedIn's CPO probably increased. But anyways, getting to your point, just based off that data, I'm thinking in order to increase the lead to pipeline conversion rates, just knowing this data, leaning in and targeting, higher intent audiences is going to be the name of the game. I love what Jason said earlier, really understanding not only what your ICP is, but what is your right to win target accounts that you want to go after, really segmenting your campaigns by your target account list And also you can segment them based off of intent signals. Like I was mentioning before, what are some intent signals that are signaling that these buyers are in buying mode, or that they're qualified enough for you to then offer them a high value offer? Is that an incentive offer? Is that putting more budget to a smaller group, a smaller audience, because you know that they would, your solutions or products would be a good fit for them? All right. So that's kind of how I would approach it. So overall, just consider layering in other signals or data into your retargeting mix to make it that much more pointed. So again, looking at high intent topics across G2 and Bombora, that's always been a good one for me. Looking at technographic lists across Aberdeen, that's always been an awesome combination that I've seen. Like if a persona or company is using a specific, tech stack that could align with what you're offering, could be an interesting mix. But then also really honing in and looking at the data you already have in your CRM. Are there accounts that are re-engaging? Are there accounts that are on fire or warming up, if you will, with tools like chatbots like Qualified? They'll allow you to see what accounts not only are in your CRM, but what accounts are also on your website. And you can use that to mirror what messages you're saying. So anyways, there's so much data at our disposal as B2B marketers, and it's understanding, okay, what are the signals that are identifying them being in the right space to buy, but also what's indicating their intent. And if it's on the high end, all right, let's double down on that. Let's customize the messaging and let's fuel some of those offers to get them through the funnel faster.
So if what we're seeing is like people are still converting early on, right? And they're like maybe taking a demo, but they're not making it into opportunities, or it's just way more expensive. I think the note is it becomes a long game at that point, right? Because you still have hooked them in some way, right? They've still clicked through your ad. They've maybe signed up as a lead because you've got, kind of cost per lead stuff might be coming down, but now they're not turning it into an opportunity. Well, what that means is you've got them at least interested. You've made them aware now. And so these are now your hot leads, basically, but they're not going to close right now. And so I think the mentality from marketing and from sales with these has to be, okay, this initial action basically just started our relationship. And so now I've got to nurture that relationship. I've got to give them, I can't think of it as like, oh, this is going to close in a quarter. I got to think of it as like, okay, at least I have somebody that's interested. They've seen what we do. They know what we do. Now I got to get them to that pain, or I got to wait until they have the pain and they've got the resources to be able to solve that pain. And so we'll probably need to put a little bit more effort into, all right, we're not just going from the first date to a marriage. We got to date a little bit longer, and we got to give them some offers and some other things, along the way that's not quite the marriage yet. And then when they're ready, if we've done it right, they'll come back to us. And of course, if we got product market fit and all that good stuff, but assuming all that, then they'll come back and they'll convert when it's time. But we got to play the longer game now. The other thing, as it relates to like high intent leads, you can actually use SEO for this too. A lot of people think SEO is more general, but what I've learned is you actually can drive an SEO strategy that attracts more like down the funnel people. It really is, based on what type of content you're putting out there, what you can be found on from a search perspective, can also kind of indicate what part of the funnel that they're in. And so you can, really juice up the free traffic that are actually people that might be in market, that have high intent, that are part of your ICP. And so don't count SEO out, even when it comes to lead gen and lead capture and, demand funnel.
You heard it here first. SEO is not dead, people. Alon, I saw you shaking your head a lot. Anything to add on the points that maybe Brittany or Jason were making?
I think that's I agree with Jason, but I think when it comes to SEO, it depends on your priorities. This is not my top priority because you can always run Google Ads campaign to capture the demand. But I think that right now, since it's a long-term, since you will have to invest in long-term strategies and buyers take their time, the sales cycle is slow, they need to be sure, they need to allocate budget, and even before that, they need to prioritize solving the problem that you solve, that your product solves. So I think that you should think about how you become part of the narrowed list that they have of vendors before they search for it. This is how I see it. So, and this is again comes, and we are coming back to the demand creation, because this is how you make sure that you, and brand awareness, this is how you make sure that you stay top of mind. And then when the need arises, they will search for you in Google. And I think that SEO for me, it won't be the top priority right now for this reason.
Anything to add on that, Jason? You had a bit of a face, but
oh, that was only, sorry, that was funny because there was like an alarm going, like car alarm going off out here, and I was hoping I wasn't on mute. Sorry, no, I wasn't poo-pooing Alon's idea at all with my facial expressions. I know it probably came across that way. No, I agree with Alon.
I thought we were getting some.
You don't have to agree.
No, I know, I know, yeah, but no, this one is one literally I'm not making an excuse. It was an alarm going off. I will say I agree with you. Like, SEO may not be a top priority for a lot of people. And in fact, a lot of people that I'm talking to right now, it's more short-term stuff, and SEO is a longer-term play. And you're right, you can target keywords on Google, but if you don't have a lot of spend or any spend, you know what I mean? SEO is one thing that you can do with limited spend, resources that you have that can help get, and drive more traffic to your site. But you're looking at a 3 to 6 to 9 month, time.
Not to mention that if you have a low demand in your category in general, or if you are creating a new category, it won't work in any case. So yeah, but we're on the same page.
Yeah, trying to guess what people are searching for to find it. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to move to the next set of questions. Somehow we have spent 40 minutes having the time of our lives talking about this report. So Jessica, I'm going to pass it over to you for some like channel specific questions around Facebook and LinkedIn. So kind of what, from your, as a practitioner, what were you seeing when it comes to Facebook and LinkedIn, and what are some actionable takeaways that a customer could use?
Yeah, I think looking at the report, there's definitely an opportunity on Facebook. It's definitely a great way to build your brand awareness, given the cost. It's very cost effective. You can reach so many users at a lower cost. Like I said, the report shows that CPC CPL is cheaper last year and even cheaper this year. And what's interesting is definitely the cost per opportunity. But I think not a lot of B2B marketers utilizing Facebook more than they should. The cost effectiveness is one of it, but it really goes back to your strategy. What kind of audience, ads, and offer you use? Is your messaging resonate with your audience and all of that? And the performance improvement on Facebook also, I think, in line with more marketers spend more money on Facebook right now. So yeah, if you keep testing and leaning into your data, Facebook can be a great channel for your B2B campaigns, I feel like.
Nice. And we have a lot of fractional advisor former leaders. How are you advising customers or just folks you're connecting with to use social in their strategy, whether it be a particular channel or as its entirety? Don't be shy.
I feel like I've talked a lot. I know.
You're
I feel like I've
smiling
talked a lot,
like
so
a
I'm just
crazy
like,
person, so you can.
This is uncomfortable quietness. Jason can't handle it. I have to talk now. I'm kidding. No, just like I mentioned it a little bit. Everyone I've talked to is kind of like, how do we save money? How do we get more efficient? How do we spend less? How do we do more with less? Just all that same stuff. And so what I'm advising people to do is, because a lot of people want to cut, right? So like, what do I cut? And they're like, how do I know what to cut, what's working and what's not? It's just got to get deeper in your analysis, right? So a lot of people were just looking at the effectiveness of paid advertising. Okay, great. Well, what about the channel? What about the tactic? What about the audience? What about, the offer? Are you looking at these different things, the messaging, the type of ad? There's all these different things and more granular data that you can look at. And a lot of people are just like stuck higher up. And so some of what I'm doing is saying, hey, if you don't have your data house in order to be able to get lower and understand the effect of these things on, revenue metrics, then focus on that first. Like get the measurement in order down to the level where you will be able to see a difference in the performance. Because if you need to cut and everything looks the same, then you're just left guessing and throwing it against the wall. And so have that data available. And if you don't have it available, then work on that first. Then next, it's kind of like, what can we do outside of paid is what a lot of people are asking. And so it's starting to bring up things like email again and SEO and just organic earned social media and those kinds of things and how those get leveraged. But from a paid perspective, it's more about making sure you can get down to that level of understanding what's working and what's not. So you can be more nimble and accurate about decisions you're making.
Huge. I love that, Jason. I'm also advising very similar approaches. One of the things that I'm noticing when I'm helping other really marketing leaders right now is, how can we do more for less? But it's really rephrasing it as how can we do less better? And so that's what I'm really focusing in on is, what is the data telling us, right? Is the data aligned with what's operating well or not well? And then I'm really advising, well, let's understand first what the data is telling us, number one. And then number two, let's stop spreading ourselves so thin, right? I think that's where, as a previous demand gen leader too, I would get caught in. It's like, oh, there's all these new things. There's doing more, I can achieve more. You can't boil the ocean and get the results that you're needing, especially if budgets are being cut, teams are being cut, right? So it's focusing on doing less better, and then also understanding and doubling down on what is the actual things that are driving the business forward, number one, and then let's double down on that first. And then once we really hone in, okay, let's just take LinkedIn. LinkedIn is our top performing paid search channel. Perfect. Once you have that honed in, let's make sure we're honing in the handoff experience, the buying experience. When someone raises their hand and they want to talk to sales, what does that look like, right? Like unpacking your funnel mechanics. That's where I'm going. And then once you've mastered those one or two channels that are just crushing it for you, now it's time to expand with the data, right? Sometimes using Facebook works and sometimes it doesn't, depending on who you're going after. So overall, understanding what the data is telling you, number one, totally agree with Jason there. Number two, doing less better, really honing in that experience across the board, and then really honing in on what's working now and then expanding methodically later. You don't have to do everything all at once.
Yeah, I love what Brittany said, doing less better, because we always talk about it's great that we are being efficient, but we got to make sure that we're also being effective. So yeah, I love that.
And I agree with all. So I would add two other things that we haven't mentioned here. One, I think that what's going on right now is the market is your place where you can do something different. For example, you can talk with your buyers and try to understand how they make buy decision these days, and then you can refine your go-to-market strategy. You can understand, you can come up with a different positioning that more aligns with how they see their pain right now, and like positioning your product like a must-have, not a nice-have. This is one thing that I think can really help you understand what you're doing right now, besides analyzing your data, your funnel. And another thing is customer marketing, because if you have happy customers that really like it, that your best customers that love what you do, using your product on a daily basis and so on, so you can use them as you can use them as your advocators. You can ask for referrals and so on. So it's something that can be with almost no CAC. You can bring a new customer with close to zero CAC. So I think it's another channel, another thing that you can think right now. And another thing about customer marketing, also make sure you retain your existing customers, because you know that acquiring new customer is much more expensive than retaining them. That's it.
Yes, so important to retain customers. All right, somehow we only have 10 minutes left, so I'm going to ask one final question, and you can, well, I'll ask two. You can choose which one you want to answer. One hot take on what you think next year's benchmark report will say, or one hot take on what you think the state of social will be over the next year, and maybe a platform or a tactic to consider trying. Jason, you're nodding, so I'll let you go first.
Awesome. Cool. So I think one of the things that we'll see, I don't know which one I'm answering, probably like what next year's report will look like. One thing I think, sorry, clearing my throat. I think this year's report captured a lot of people cutting programs that they didn't really know if they were working or not. So like just randomly cutting things because I don't have the data to tell me what's working or not, but I have to I have to hit some budget cut numbers. So hopefully what we'll see is that might have created some inefficiencies, because like we were cutting things that might have been working, some that might not have. So ideally in the next report, people get that data house in order and they're cutting things that actually aren't working. And so we see some of these cost pers, the rates, we see some of those improve. So hopefully that happens. People get smarter about what they're cutting instead of just like taking a blunt instrument and just lobbing off a certain percent of their marketing and they're not sure which part they lobbed off. I think we'll probably continue to see more spend on the brand awareness type of campaigns or ungated, type of campaigns that are just trying to get the awareness out there. And ideally we'll see better campaigns around this. I know there's still a lot of bad marketing going on out there. And if you're doing bad marketing and you're putting money behind it, it's just obviously a waste. And then I think we'll see things like more PLG, because getting people closer to, so an offer, I'm saying like changing up the offers, and one of those offers being PLG, because it's, getting people closer and closer to the product. Because before I spend any money, I have to really know with pretty high confidence that I'm going to make at least that money back from that investment. And so the closer you can get people to what it's like to actually be using your product, all the way to like a free trial, ideally, I think is going to become more of a necessity. So we'll probably ideally see better offers around that and higher conversion to those types of offers. So we'll see.
Yes, only time will tell. All right, Jessica, over to you.
Yeah, I'll answer what is the hot take you'd give to B2B marketers, I think. Yeah. I think definitely keep testing, try everything. The benchmark report is great. There's a lot of insights, but do not just use that insight as, okay, I'm going to try this now and see how it works. It's not working, so I'm not going to try it again. So all these insights are great, but you really have to test out everything and rely on your data to then translate it into actionable items, because what's working for others, for other customers may not work for you. So definitely rely on your own data to then build that, translate that into insight.
Yeah, great point. And as Jason mentioned at the top of this call, this benchmark report is a slice of a whole bunch of different types of companies and perspectives on how they're marketing. So always use your own data and make data-driven decisions on that. All right, Alon, how about you?
I think Jessica and Jason brought up a great point. I think that one thing I hope we will see, and time will tell, obviously, but I think that once companies realize that decreasing the CPL or increasing the CTR and so on, these metrics are important for campaign optimization, but they realize that at the end of the day, if they don't drive pipeline, they should cut this effort. So I think that we start seeing, I don't know if it will be a dramatic change, but we start seeing that companies are reallocating their budgets, and shifting the balance more towards the long-term strategy. This is I hope that it will happen, but this is in any case my advice, because it clearly shows that the management doesn't really work. So That's how I see it.
That was a hot take. All right, Brittany.
All right. On the caboose. Yeah, I think the biggest thing I'll combine, what I'd like to see or what we will likely see in next year's report with kind of a combination of what I'd like to see in the market overall. I think next year I'd love to see, and I hope to see in the report, a clear delineation between brand awareness approaches and lead generation approaches. I think, again, it was such a broad reach across multiple industries and companies and different motions that it was really hard to understand. Was download really the clear CTA winner, or was it the clear CTA winner because there was more gated content being leveraged, right? So I think that would be really cool to see, because I do think a lot of B2B marketers are stepping into this more modern way of marketing. At least I hope so, right? I've got faith in us. And to that point, I think next year we're going to see continuous marketing campaigns that are doubling down on brand awareness campaigns that aren't gating things behind walls or forms, right? So we're maximizing consumption and reach, and then we're using the data that we can leverage across LinkedIn, our own CRMs, to make those educated stories to our VPs of marketing, our CMOs, our boards of the world, to really lean into, hey, this is how we're educating and coming along our buyers, and this is how we're helping accelerate the buying experience. I think we're going to be seeing more of that. And I think those are the big things. And ultimately, I think all those complement to, we're going to see more of a mix between lead gen and brand awareness plays, so that we're holistically being demand gen marketers. We're not being lead gen marketers anymore.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Thank you to our speakers. This will be available in the demand community, and I believe everybody here is in the demand community. So if you want some more hot takes from these folks, feel free to reach them there. And have a great day. Thanks, everybody, for joining. This was great.
Thanks, Alex. That was fun.
Bye.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bye.